Mention that there is an element of industrial unrest emanating out of, I think it's Petrotrin and on the waterfront. I want to remind all of those people that the laws, I'm sure the Attorney General would be able to define it better than I can, the laws affecting the state of emergency and industrial unrest and industrial action are quite clear. I want to embrace this opportunity as well to commend our police officers and members of the protective services and defense force for their commitment to duty and for what has been happening over the past 48 hours or so. I also reiterate that the officers have been advised, have been ordered, have been instructed that they ought not to use more force than is necessary in the conduct of their duty. They must be firm and be courteous. I am saying this to allay fears of our law-abiding citizens that while, yes, some of your constitutional rights have been taken away, albeit temporarily, the intent is to make you more comfortable and not to increase any inconvenience that you are already undergoing. So I want to make that clear that our officers are out there to assist you law-abiding citizens. And we ask that you accommodate us in the course of our duties. I thank you.
I want to support what the minister has stated. Our officers are out there with a greater degree of powers provided to them under the state of emergency. Our purpose is to create safety and security for everyone in Trinidad and Tobago. And this is providing us opportunity to do that. We will be firm. We ask for cooperation from the public. And we know that with the cooperation of the public, we can provide that measure of safety and security. We aren't out there to cause the citizens grief. We're there to provide them a greater opportunity to live in peace without that sense of fear. As far as the report for the last reporting period between 6 p.m. yesterday, August 23rd, and 8 a.m. on August 24th today, we have seen the arrest of 117 persons. 56 of those people are related to gangs. 48 persons were arrested for drug offenses. 4 persons arrested for firearms-related offenses. 1 person arrested for homicide. 8 persons arrested for other serious crimes. There were 2 firearms seized, 18 rounds of ammunition, and 1 cartridge. We will continue to provide information with regards to the number of people we've arrested, the contraband, the weapons that we've seized. And we will start also with an accumulation in terms of providing you the accumulative results as we move forward in our briefings each day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister and Commissioner Gibbs. There's been some question about the measurement of the success of this state of emergency and the operations that have been engaged pursuant to that state of emergency. I suppose the first point I wish to make today is that when a state of emergency was declared by His Excellency, it was in response to intelligence received from the security agencies, which we cannot share with the population, but which I want to assure you averted a crisis. So the first immediate success I feel confident to be able to report on, quite separate and apart from the seizures and the arrests, is the fact that a crisis has been averted by the declaration of the state of emergency and the imposition of curfews in certain specifically identified areas. The second point I wish to make is that insofar as we shared one aspect of the intelligence and the state of emergency came on the heels of a major drug bust, over $22 million. It is not just the amount of money that the drugs are worth and what the seizure represents to the criminal enterprise that was involved in that business of drug trafficking, but it goes deeper and the ramifications are a lot more. And I say this because what the police service and our security agencies were able to do by making that discovery is to stop in the tracks an entire drug trafficking operation that used Trinidad and Tobago as a route and transshipment point. That by itself carries implications for the extent and the depth of the retaliation and reprisal. But it is not that you discover 22 million, full stop. You may have also prevented a further 100 million, which would have been coming in on a weekly basis. We also have had the same position in terms of the discoveries at the port. Perhaps I'd like also to comment on, and say welcome back to Commissioner Gibbs, and announce that I had met with Commissioner Gibbs, and I'm now very satisfied with the explanation given over the brouhaha and the controversy, which really now that I have spoken to Commissioner Gibbs is a storm in a teacup. Commissioner Gibbs did in fact, I am advised, seek permission to travel, and that permission was in fact granted. And more than that, that fact was communicated to the Director of Personnel Administration in the Service Commission's department, who is in fact the conduit between the Police Service Commission and the executive arm of the state, and indeed the Office of the Commissioner of Police. With respect to Commissioner Gibbs' unfortunate absence from the country at this time, it is not that this state of emergency was pre-planned such that he would have had the benefit or knowledge of it beforehand, and his trip therefore took place before the decision was taken to declare a state of emergency. With that in mind, therefore, I wish to say as well that for avoidance of any doubt, the curfew orders signed by the Acting Commissioner of Police, to whom we pay tribute, Mr. Stephen Williams, for his yeoman service in Commissioner Gibbs' absence, those curfew orders are lawful, valid, and proper. If citizens disregard those curfew orders, they will be in violation of the law. They will be arrested and they will be detained. Make no mistakes about that. If you wish to be arrested and detained, breach the curfew law and you go to court and argue that it was illegal. But I want to reassure you that the Police Service Commission, by letter dated 23rd of August, retroactively appointed Mr. Stephen Williams with effect from August 19th to 23rd, based on the recommendation of Commissioner Gibbs prior to his departure from Trinidad and Tobago. The Interpretation Act of Trinidad and Tobago allows the Police Service Commission, and indeed all our constitutional service commissions, to make this kind of retroactive appointment, and this has in fact been done for decades in this country. In fact, as you know, I've represented many a public servant from here to the Privy Council, and it is not at all unusual that you get the letter of acting appointment towards the end of the acting appointment period, or even after the acting appointment period came to an end. And that is the way the bureaucracy works. It is sometimes the way the red tape and the communication channel and the protocol works. But that has been with us since time immemorial. It is nothing new. It is nothing special towards Acting Commissioner Stephen Williams. It is nothing about Commissioner Gibbs. That is, in fact, a well-established practice and procedure that will be known to every single public servant in this country. That your letter to confirm your acting appointment normally comes late, and it is really a retroactive confirmation of your acting appointment. And that is precisely what happened here. And the letter dated August 23rd came to retroactively confirm the acting appointment of Commissioner Stephen Williams, and it is valid and proper because the law allows it. With respect to the industrial action that has been taken, we have contingency plans in place, but I wish to say that those workers who have been calling us to say they want to go out to work, this is not the time for anyone in the trade union movement to attempt to intimidate, harass, or prevent workers who wish to assume duties, because that will be a matter that cannot be tolerated during a state of emergency. With respect to the population's response and support, I again wish to pay tribute. Some of the seizures and some of the arrests we have made could not have been done without the intelligence we've got, the community-based intelligence, the localized intelligence that we've been receiving from ordinary men and women who are just simply fed up and frustrated with the crime situation in their own backyard. Today I salute them, I pay tribute to them, and I commend them for coming forward and standing up in defense and protection of themselves, their families, and indeed Trinidad and Tobago. I wish to renew my appeal again to all those who have been shaking their heads, for all those who have been complaining about the crime situation, those who may have lost loved ones. Please share whatever intelligence you have with us. Without you, this will not be the success that we want it to be. So we have also in that vein spoken to the security agencies and hope to be in a position tomorrow to announce a new set of dedicated hotline numbers to invite members of the public to provide credible intelligence. Those who wish to provide false information to send us on wild goose chases, rest assured you will be dealt with. We are not saying that when you call, you have to know as a fact what you are saying is true. You are providing intelligence, but do not call to set us up with some kind of hoax or false information. Last week we had calls about a bus, I believe, overturning and people looting in the highway. We sent a police squad down there, nothing of the sort. And we've been having some calls like that. But by and large, we've had responsible citizens providing credible intelligence that has been fed into the nodes of the system that have been serving us well. I also want to say that even what you see on the television, some of the people, even within the gangs, there's a concept for some gangs, blood in, blood out. And there are some young men who are involved in gangs who want to get out. But because of the blood in, blood out, the gang leader refuses to let them out. And we want to pay tribute to some of those brave young men in those gangs who know where they have stashed the weapons and who know the kind of illegal activities that have gone down and those that were being planned. I want to make an urgent appeal to you. It is not too late to turn away from a life of crime. Now is the time to rescue yourself from the decisions you have made and to turn your life around. If you share with us information about your gang, not only will you be able to come out of that gang, but we will also snuff out the very lifeblood and existence of that gang, so that you will be able to have a life of your own. Continue to call us. Rest assured, information provided is being dealt with in the strictest of confidence. No disclosure of identity, no disclosure of telephone numbers, nothing of the sort. But now is your time to help yourself to make a difference in your own life. To the young men and women who are involved in a life of crime, who may wish to get out, I say, I want to leave you with one personal message and my own personal motto, and that is, what you are is God's gift to you, but what you make of yourself is your gift to God. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Ladies and gentlemen of the national community, the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force continues to support these law enforcement operations with its efforts. Over the last 12 hours, we conducted 26 independent military patrols and 2 joint patrols with the police. These patrols were done throughout the areas of Arima, Chaguanas, San Fernando, Port of Spain, and Maraval. In Maraval, we had 1 person detained and handed over to the police. We currently have a presence in the Tomato Trace area in Diego Martin, and that follows on an operation that was conducted last night, a search operation, and that was based on some strong intelligence that we received with regard to the situation of there. It is the Defense Force, and we have 2 other formations in addition to the Land Force. The Coast Guard has intensified its maritime security operations, patrols both in Trinidad and Tobago, in the western and southern coastlines of Trinidad and across Tobago. In Tobago, over the last 12 hours, we had 3 persons detained with illegal drugs, and those persons were handed over to the police. In terms of the Air Guard, they have intensified their air surveillance operations, air surveillance patrols across the eastern and northern coastlines of Trinidad. One of the things that we have taken into consideration in respect of the state of emergency is that apart from those areas have been designated the curfew arrangements from 2100 hours to 05, we are concerned about activities in and across some of the areas that are not affected. So we are in fact monitoring movement, vehicular movement, personal movement in those areas once the curfew sets in, so that we could gauge what the landscape looks like on a 24-hour basis, so we could shift our operations and rechannel resources so that we gain better results at the end of the day. So again, we continue to support the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. I just want to, on a personal level, echo the sentiments of the Honourable Minister and the Attorney General, and add to the call for the national community to continue engaging us, continue supporting us with the information, so that we, as a country, can ensure that we have a better future for our children and our children's children. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have heard of our successes over the past couple of days. During that period, we have been able to put a damper on criminal activity in Trinidad and Tobago. We have had no homicides during that period, and it is our intent to ensure that this continues. Operations will continue unabated as we go through this period. I again call on the support of citizens of Trinidad and Tobago with respect to understanding where we are and what we are trying to do, all for peace, security and safety of our people. I urge those parents again, those with their loved sons, to remember that we do not want to lose our young men. We want our young men to grow up to take care of their mothers and fathers. We want them to be around so that you don't, as parents and brothers and sisters, that you will not be like others and wailing for them. This is not what we want. We want productive young men and women in Trinidad and Tobago. This is all we are asking. So as parents, the onus is upon you to guide your children, guide your youngsters, to ensure that they remove themselves from lives of criminal activity. There are a number of opportunities out here for young men and women. We need to ensure that we take full advantage of those opportunities so that we grow up young men and women of whom we can be justly proud. So this is an appeal to parents to ensure that your young sons follow a life that does not allow them to get involved in criminal activity. If they are, ensure that they terminate that type of life. We are now open to questions. Please feel free. Thank you kindly. And before I close, tomorrow you'd be advised as to what time the press briefing is, because remember tomorrow it's cabinet. We'll let you know what time and where. Thank you.
Joel Brown from CNews. I have a question to the police commissioner. There was a lot of confusion, at least for a period of time yesterday afternoon, when the Police Service Commission's statement came out, that you, neither yourself nor Deputy Commissioner Iwatsky, had informed them of your departure from the country, and then subsequently they retroactively appointed Mr. Williams. Now we are hearing from the Attorney General, in fact, the Director of Personnel had been informed. So what led to this statement yesterday? Because it gave an impression at some point that the curfew order signed by then Acting Commissioner Williams was maybe not properly legally authorized.
I can't comment on what caused the comments by the Police Service Commission. I can reiterate what the Attorney General has said, and that's the approvals for my travel did occur certainly prior to my trip. And the trip was not a personal trip. It was based on an invite from a Mariupol who invited me down as an observer to a signing of a memorandum of agreement between South American countries and the European Union to strengthen their ability, the policing ability, to attack organized crime groups and drug traffickers. And again, as you heard from the Attorney General this morning, that Trinidad is a transnational shipment country. And the purpose of inviting me down is to basically build a network, build the strength in collaborative efforts to stop that movement of drugs, cocaine in particular, between South America and the European countries, as well as Africa and North America.
And also, at what point were you informed that the state of emergency had been declared, or the cabinet decided upon it, while you were in Brazil? And then at what point did you attempt to come back home? Because we did hear of a temporary detention because of a visa issue.
Well, of course, the state of emergency came about on Sunday. There was a lot of planning and activity that needed to take place by the police service and the protective services. It was during that time I was briefed by the acting deputy commissioner and other members from the police service.
Can I follow up by asking, now we are hearing that you did get the permission, but we haven't heard from whom. Who gave you the permission to travel? Clearly the PSC is saying it was not them.
The request had gone to the Ministry of National Security. It had gone to Cabinet for their approval. And it was at that time I was informed that approval had been provided.
Well, then perhaps if the minister would be so kind to tell us who the approval was who approved it.
Sometime around, I think it would have been Thursday, I got a request from the commissioner, together with the letter of invitation from Brazil. I indicated to him that I needed to get the concurrence of the Honorable Prime Minister. That letter stated that Deputy Commissioner Williams would have been acting in his stead. I assumed, therefore, having regard to the fact that the Commissioner is aware that he ought to have had some clearance from the PSC, and having regard to the fact that he indicated that Deputy Commissioner Stevens would have been holding in his stead, I understood then that that appointment would have come from the PSC. Now, having shared that with the Prime Minister, she said she had no objection, and I indicated to the Commissioner that the Prime Minister has no objection as head of the National Security Council. And I assume that having already had his permission from where he ought to have had it, he was seeking concurrence from the Honorable Prime Minister.
Maybe I should, if I can ask the Attorney General, because you made it, based on your comments, it appears that the letter that was handed to Mr. Williams was just procedural, that the appointment came retroactively. The PSC isn't saying that. They're saying, quite frankly, they knew nothing about this. So it does appear that that letter was not procedural as such. It just was an afterthought. Having realized there was a problem, we are now appointing him, and not just the normal process taking place.
I think the Police Service Commission will have to explain itself in this matter. It is a source of great disappointment that in the middle of a state of emergency, the Commission could issue a press release of the kind that they did yesterday that could cause the kind of confusion in the minds of the population as to the validity of the curfew orders signed by Acting Commissioner Stephen Williams. And I say so because the letter that they sent quite clearly appointed Mr. Stephen Williams, and it's signed by the chairman of the commission, and it appointed him to act with effect from August 19 to the 23rd, 2011. But more than that, ladies and gentlemen, we have to take a common sense approach. These things happen every single day. I've represented the public service and public servants all my life in law. I've done cases all the way to the Privy Council. And I know for a fact that the established practice and procedure and the culture of the police service is that the letter to confirm your acting appointment normally comes ex post facto. It comes sometimes when the acting appointment is long gone and finished. I see some of the officers shaking their heads and nodding their heads in agreement, because that is a reality. Now, I don't know if the commissioner gets his approval and notifies the commission, namely through the Director of Personnel Administration, I don't know I can fault the commissioner there, because that is in fact the established and proper protocol for the Office of Commissioner of Police to follow. Now, I spoke with the Director of Personnel Administration, and Ms. Gloria Edwards Joseph confirmed to me that she did in fact receive the commissioner's communique, that it was in fact sent to her office. Now, I don't know if there's some misconception or misunderstanding about the role of the Public Service, the Police Service Commission in this matter. But the commissioner cannot communicate directly with the chairman. The Director of Personnel Administration is there, who is in charge of the day-to-day operations of the Service Commissions Department, and they are like the CEO or the Permanent Secretary, and that is the correct channel to follow. I don't know if there was some breakdown of communication there. I can't understand it myself, but I'm glad that this storm in a teacup is behind us, and I really want to look forward, because there is really no issue, legal or otherwise, as far as I'm concerned.
Gentlemen, if we could just talk about the measurement of success of the state of emergency. Yesterday it was said that the major criminals are going to be targeted. Since Sunday, how successful has that exercise been in rounding up these so-called big boys and big fishes? Because I think there is a perception rather, that it is really the small fries that are being rounded up.
In the not too distant future, that perception will change.
But is it that the state of emergency has been successful thus far in rounding up the big boys?
We have rounded up a number of people. Among them, we have some gang leaders, if it's like the big boys you're talking about.
Now, if I can just turn to some of the stats. 56 gang members, 48 for drugs and firearms and so on. What sort of quantities are we speaking about? Is it containers of drugs? Is it kilos of drugs? Ammunition? What are we speaking about?
Commissioner?
Well, as you've already heard, we do provide you information in terms of the ammunition and the weapons seized. As far as the drugs seized, a lot of that is still being processed in terms of all the quantities, again, to build the files, to build the evidence against the people that we've arrested and picked up. So it does take time to sort through all of the evidence, all of the things that we gather along with the people that we're arresting. When you talk 56 gang members, that's a lot of members. And it's up to us really to sort through the members, to see their affiliations, to see what ranking they are in the scale of that organization. And it takes time to do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We need to be in Arima for 2 o'clock, so we need to get moving. Thank you very much. As I indicated, we will advise you where we will be tomorrow and what time.